So I honestly thought people were either going to be more excited or more bent out of shape when it came to the Batman, but it seems like even though the movie was a pretty big hit, and a few people got pissy about exactly what you'd expect, it was almost exclusively the performative outrage grifters who nobody actually takes seriously, so yeah, a bit of a surprise. I mean, do people not care? I don't think that's it. People obviously watched this. It was a big hit. Is it actually subtle and nuanced enough and enriching and intellectually fulfilling enough of a viewing experience that the average audience as a whole was capable of experiencing it as an experience and sitting with it rather than incorporating it into the loud and stupid interpersonal meaningless conflict that comprise our daily existence? Sorry, I can't even pretend to finish that thought with a straight face.
Oh, you're really not as smart as I thought you were.
Was it that all the most obnoxious voices in the popular culture who'd otherwise have been making hay about woke Catwoman or incel stereotype Riddler too busy figuring out which side they were supposed to be on to pwn the neo-libs now that the topic du jour is an actual war and not a stupid culture? Holy shit, that actually seems to be it, isn't it? Oh my god, I was joking, but that's actually the reason, isn't it? Jesus titty But really, I think it's got more to do with the whole decoupled from continuity thing actually having a tangible effect on the way these things are received now. The Flash or Flashpoint or whatever they end up calling it hasn't even officially dropped a real trailer or come out to definitively establish that it's really happening yet, but it feels like everyone has picked up the vibe that Warner Brothers is really moving ahead with some version of a DC movie strategy whereby the shared universe continuity is going to keep on trucking as some yet-to-be-defined reboot focused on a newer era version of various properties and offbeat, lesser-known stuff filmmakers have more free reign with that's been working for them better so far, while the A-list brands get cordoned off into separate standalone spaces to attract the auteur director set DC Black Label style, and as such there's less of a sense of discourse sausage to be made of this, since this one can only prospectively affect its own sequels as spin-offs as far as we know so far. I mean, at least for now. In any case, I already ran my actual review in which I said it was fine, I guess, but what stuck out to me in the requiring spoilers to explain sense was how lacking in substance its finish was for something that was so stuffed with plot and took so long to play out. So I wanted to take some time here and lay out where I felt like this one rang a little hollow for me, maybe also for you, who knows.
How can you even say that, Dad?
Didn't like it.
Peter, it's so good. It's like the perfect movie.
This is what everyone always says. Whenever
Explain yourself. What didn't you like about it?
It insists upon itself, Lois.
What?
It insists upon itself.
What does that even mean?
Because it has a valid point to make. It's insistent.
It takes forever getting in. You spend like 6.5 hours, and then I can't even get through. I can't even finish the movie. I've never even seen the ending.
You've never seen the ending?
Well, how can you say you don't like it if you haven't even given it a chance?
I agree with Stewie. It's not really fair.
I love the money pit. That is my answer to that statement.
Exactly.
Well, there you go.
Whatever.
I like that movie, too.
And look, it's a new movie, so let me say in advance, I'm doing what I can on the visual front, but there's only so much you can do to visualize with a movie that's this brand new, so please enjoy montage and repeated trailer clips. Anyway, spoiler warning in effect from here on out, and to cut right to the thesis, thematically, The Batman is a movie that actually really does not seem to care that much for the Batman as a concept, but it either doesn't seem to know how much it doesn't like its own subject, or doesn't have the conviction, for whatever reason, to actually come right out and say so.
Why are you protecting a psychotic clown who treats you like garbage?
Ask the guy who fucks bats.
He doesn't do that! Jim!
So, it takes pretty much to the end of Act 2 for all of this to come out, but here is the general what was that all about of the Batman, i.e. what was going on with the Riddler killing people, leaving clues for Batman, eventually staging a terrorist attack on the city, etc. The Riddler turns out to be a guy named Edward Nashton, not Nigma, because funny names are fun and fun isn't serious and grown up, and his story is that he was an orphan, which definitely sucks, and he's especially double plus mad about it because back like 20 years ago, Thomas Wayne was running for mayor, just like in Joker, and he promised he was going to do a big fix Gotham and give everyone a pony, yes, even the orphans renewal thingy, but then he and Martha got killed, like always happens, and so that didn't happen, and also the media made a big deal out of Bruce Wayne now being an orphan, but he was also still rich, so like not really the same thing as Riddler, so that was kind of like salt in the wound, and the shitty orphanage he was in actually used to be Wayne Manor because they donated it, so that's like a commentary on how class resentment comes to be and how capitalist philanthropy sometimes makes things worse by perpetuating the system instead of overturning it at the root, which is actually pretty interesting, except this is mostly in the prequel novels, or Riddler just talks about it instead of being on screen, so not really. Anyway, the reason he's the Riddler instead of just the sad man is he became a forensic accountant and found out that Thomas Wayne might have actually deserved to get shot because of corruption instead of just random bad luck. See, apparently when Thomas Wayne was running for mayor, a tabloid journalist was going to ruin his campaign by revealing that Martha Wayne had been treated in Arkham Asylum for mental issues because of, I don't know, stupid convoluted lore bullshit about her dead parents that I'm sure will turn into stupider lore bullshit about Hush or the Court of Owls or whatever in the next one. Whatever. So Thomas had saved this mob guy, played by John Turturro, from dying at some point in the past, which meant he owed him a blood debt because that was a plot point in The Long Halloween and that's a popular Batman comic. So Thomas asked John Turturro to
Save Martha!
By scaring the reporter out of publishing his story, but Turturro maybe killed the guy instead so he could have blackmail leverage over the Waynes when Thomas became the next mayor, which may have been what prompted a different mob guy to have the Waynes killed in order to prevent one of his rivals from having those kind of connection.
My ridiculously circuitous plan is 1/4 complete.
Thusly, Riddler concluded that his class resentment had been justified all along, i.e. if the Waynes hadn't been corrupt, they wouldn't have been killed and my life wouldn't have sucked so much. Which, along with being an actually very realistic portrayal of the socio-political acumen of guys who do internet videos exposing the elites in real life.
Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. They're bashing it because I don't like gay people. I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay. Do you understand that?
Is why he undertakes a reign of terrorism and serial killing against everyone in both Gotham's political and law enforcement elite and its underworld connected to that whole web of cover-ups and corruption, while also masterminding a scheme by his army of internet followers to stage terrorist bombings and a mass shooting massacre to flood the city and kill the new mayor, because dagnabbit, this movie will mix as many newsworthy metaphors as it can find to make sure you know it has smart politics, but also the most up-to-date, mainstream, palatable politics, i.e., wow, there's a lot of conspicuous centrist liberals decided they like the police again ADR voiceover from Commissioner Gordon in Act 2 and 3, huh? I bet if they'd had to delay this another week, the KG Beast would have been in there again. Oh yeah, did you know that's who this random useless dude was supposed to be in Batman v Superman? Yeah, that was totally real, look it up. Oh, also, the reason Riddler has so many people to kill is that all the cops, politicians, and gangsters running Gotham City now apparently use the death of the Waynes and subsequent investigations into and cover-ups about as means to enrich themselves and work out who is in charge of the whole corrupt power structure, and Catwoman is here ostensibly because her roommate went missing, but really because John Turturro is her secret father, because that's also a plot point from Long Halloween, but mostly because if she wasn't here, this would have like the least women present in terms of total screen time of like any Batman movie ever. Seriously, Sam Peckinpah would be going,
God damn, y'all need to get some bras in here.
But here's the thing, a lot of this is sort of moderately edgy and subversive of expectations about the Batman mythology and whatnot, but none of it is really a twist in terms of the plot of the movie. Most of it is just right out there, or in a video Riddler just releases for everyone to watch midway through, and the rest of it he just confesses right before the big extraneous final action scene, just very matter-of-factly, here's who I am and why I done what I done. Instead, the twist turns out to be why his plan doesn't fully succeed, but also why Batman fails to stop it right away, so the plan mostly plays out, and why he still kills a ton of people and basically destroys a bunch of Gotham City. And this is where the Batman actually seems to be trying to do something really interesting and provocative and unique and even sort of bold with not just this specific property, but the entire superhero movie genre, holding up not only Batman individually, but the Batman-style archetype and indeed the entire extra-legal vigilante savior fantasy trope to the cold light of day for practical, philosophical, and ideological introspection, and finding it to be actually kind of wanting.
Jim, what's wrong? It's Barb. You know, she's sleeping with someone else. The signal is for emergencies.
You see, for a lot of the movie, people keep trying to tell Bruce Wayne that he's not doing Batman the right way, even people who don't know he's the Batman or the other way around. Alfred tells him he needs to not be just the I'm vengeance guy, the new progressive mayor tells him Bruce should be a philanthropist like his family used to be, Catwoman explicitly calls out Gotham's elite for not just being corrupt but blinded by white privilege and makes sure to include Bruce Wayne among that list, and even he isn't sure he's actually making a difference, being basically a consulting detective who helps the police and also beats the shit out of street thugs. But, big twist, the one person who doesn't think he's doing a bad job is the Riddler. Riddler, as it turns out, underneath his own nominal gimmick and nickname, is just a Batman fanboy from the internet who thinks that the violent costume guy who beats people up and calls himself Vengeance must be more or less on his side about, well, everything, which kind of makes sense, really. As it turns out, the riddles, the clues, puzzles, ciphers he's been sending his messages addressed to the Batman weren't about Riddler taunting him. In his mind, he was communicating in code with what he thought was an ally and rooting out evidence of Gotham's elite corruption scandals, up to and including Batman snooping around, placing two prominent victims directly in Riddler's crosshairs, and he only fails to kill his main target, Bruce Wayne, because he never figured out that that's who Batman, really is. So yeah, Warner Brothers went looking for a topical in 2022 conception of relatably terrifying human evil to menace Batman and came back with sad, angry dweebs from the internet who take Batman way too seriously. I can't imagine how they landed on that one.
You know, they just did a 3-episode arc where Harley beats Penguin, Riddler, and Mr. Freeze using nothing but her Mary Sue powers?
Are you sure you haven't seen the show?
Yeah, 'cause I'm not a 12-year-old girl.
But in twist number 2, it's eventually clear twice over that Riddler just being a regular, obsessive, kinda smart guy and not a mastermind who could guess Batman's identity means Bruce probably should have caught him a lot sooner than he did, but didn't because, well, everyone was right and he's got a lot of blind spots, was way too concerned about revenge punching versus actual crime solving, and in general is not really that great of a detective as yet. Specifically, he and Gordon both turn out to have wasted a ton of time chasing a bad lead in circles based on misunderstanding one of the clues because neither one of them can speak proper Spanish and don't realize until Penguin has to correct their grammar, and at the end of Act 2 it's implied that he overlooked a clue that Riddler intentionally left for him, one that might have prevented the big final disaster entirely even because he didn't recognize the function of a working-class maintenance tool. Finally, in case the point had not yet been laid down with a heavy enough hand, when Batman finishes beating up the last of Riddler's henchmen at the big climax, the cops unmask the guy and ask him his name, only to have him repeat Batman's "I'm vengeance" catchphrase back to them.
Message!
So when you lay all that out from where I sit, it's kind of hard not to posit that the Batman does not actually like the Batman all that much. At least not the version of him that exists for 90% of its runtime, and also not the general overarching Batman concept of the wealthy guy who fights crime fist first because he's getting revenge for parent murder. Not only does it present a year 2 Bruce Wayne who fails to stop a not that sophisticated crime spree because he's too self-involved, doesn't have a broad enough socio-cultural understanding of the city he's operating in, and basically needs to check his privilege. Hey, don't look at me, she said it. If he wants to be the Dark Knight we're generally more fond of, it explicitly presents the inspirational effects of vigilante heroism as being insane weirdos on conspiracy forums will stockpile guns and try to murder everyone, and there's no mistaking what real-world events and persons are being evoked there. Hence why Batman has the big, "oh no, what have I done" reaction when that guy delivers the "I'm vengeance" line at the end and has to make a big symbolic death and rebirth baptismal dive into the floodwater before he can re-emerge as a literal torchbearer who now leads people out of darkness instead of the other way around, because by that point subtlety has been dragged to death behind the Batmobile. The moral and thematic arc of the Batman is that Bruce Wayne went about his whole Batman thing the wrong way and made everything worse, and even apart from him personally, vigilantism is an innately corrupting idea. Thematically, it's an anti-Batman Batman movie, which in a sense is probably the only true logical endpoint for doing a story like this in a realistic way, which is why it feels kind of unfinished, if not dishonest, for it to not actually follow that logical endpoint all the way through. In the on-the-page narrative arc of the movie, Bruce Wayne, as Batman, has failed at basically everything he set out to do. He hasn't avenged his parents' actual death. He didn't make a meaningful impact on crime or corruption in Gotham. The city is in a worse place than he left it. Like, literally, it's underwater. One of the few people he actually cares about almost died. The Batman as a symbol didn't make criminals more afraid so much as give a worse type of criminal inspiration to be even worse. The honest, organic ending of a story like that would be generally for the protagonist to go, wow, I screwed up. I need to do something completely different, i.e. not be the Batman, because the Batman is a terrible idea. I mean, that would at least be the kind of bold, brave, unexpected, holy shit, didn't see that coming ending that would make The Batman a companion piece, and frankly, in my opinion, a superior film, to Joker in terms of being a standalone, filmmaker-driven, non-continuity, just as it is feature, which I thought this was supposed to be. It's certainly what they've been pushing it as, but apparently not. They've instead already decided that this is now The Batman of Earth 2, and it's going to get a spin-off, and they're already talking sequels. So instead of what feels like its only thematically natural ending, the big summation of it is, well, that stuff all sure did happen, I guess, which has the effect of making the preceding 3 hours of not altogether bad filmmaking feel like a kind of a lot of build-up to not really all that much in retrospect. Which doesn't make this a bad movie by any means, just not as good as it otherwise might have been.
Marge, I'm confused. Is this a happy ending or a sad ending?
It's an ending, that's enough.
I mean, it's still also too way goddamn long. The political stuff is well-intentioned but heavy-handed and cheesy. The car chase is bad and the Joker thing is dumb, but that's review stuff. Ironically, trying to split the difference between a proper thematic payoff and franchise prospects ends up making it feel just as much, if not more, like a product in service of franchise management than the even more openly brand-driven material otherwise produced for the DCU proper or by the likes of Marvel Studios and Disney. Heck, in some respects, you could even argue that the Deadpool movies had more sincere follow-through to their own narrative commitments, and the second movie in that series undoes its own stakes as a post-credits gag.
It's so dark. You sure you're not from the DC universe?
I'm Bob, and that's The Big Picture.